the Eagles can get Jalen Carter or Nolan Smith, it's remarkable what Howie Roseman continues to do.
Do the Eagles just camp out in Athens?
Philadelphia Eagles make a move for D'Andre Swift. I mean, it just goes hand in hand on what Howie Roseman does, right? This is the Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Again, can't say enough about the running back room that we have, and we're even more excited about it with the addition of D'Andre.
So, if there was anyone that had a very intriguing offseason heading into the 2023 NFL Draft, it was definitely the Philadelphia Eagles. Because, of course, with coming off of their Super Bowl 57 appearance, along with a lot of questions that needed to be answered, I mean, yes, they did see some positives, but some of their negatives, on the other hand, only further upped our anticipation of what they were actually going to do on draft night. And well, after seeing the highway robbery in the first round that they committed, I'm pretty convinced there's only one of two options. And it's either Howie Roseman is nothing short of a pure genius, or he's either blackmailing all other 31 GMs to get exactly what he wants. And I mean, as if that wasn't enough, he walked away with D'Andre Swift at the end of the weekend. But of course, while most of this will look nothing short of phenomenal, at least on paper, when you actually get into what we might see on the field because of this, well, it might not necessarily be what some of you were expecting. But if you guys are looking for more draft and offseason content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications to never miss another video as we approach the 2023 season. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Philadelphia Eagles, I know it might sound like a bit of an over-exaggeration, but I mean, honestly, it's just not when I say the Eagles came out of this draft in the best situation they possibly could have imagined. Because not only did they leave the draft with the highest value duo of prospects in a lot of people's minds, and obviously that's outside of what Houston pulled off, but in terms of the acquisitions in Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, the craziest part is that they directly address some of the biggest holes that were remaining within this team. Because with some of their biggest offseason departures being guys like defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, along with linebackers in Kazir White and TJ Edwards, the fact that they were not only able to get guys that fit schematically what they are trying to retain from their top tier defensive presence last year, but also getting the highest value possible in the process, that's just insane. I mean, just the film on these guys in itself would be more than enough to solidify that point. But while there's definitely still a ton more to discuss with these guys in terms of what they could bring to the table in 2023, they're not even the newest Georgia Bulldog acquisition for Philly that I'm personally most intrigued to see. And no, I'm not referring to Kelee Ringo, who they also hilariously took from Athens, but instead, I'm talking about D'Andre Swift. Now, whenever you're talking about adding an extremely versatile and highly skilled running back like D'Andre Swift, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that adding a 24-year-old putting up numbers like these through his short NFL career thus far would be insanely valuable for literally any NFL team. I know, that's one hell of a hot take on my part, but there's definitely people wondering why a team like the Eagles would do this. Because sure, with the departure of Miles Sanders earlier in the offseason, it definitely did create a need at the position for this team, but after very quickly reacting to this and acquiring their new primary traditional ground back in Rashaad Penny, again, along with retaining Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott to support him, some people might think D'Andre Swift might create too much, or should I say unnecessary, depth in the backfield. But trust me, especially within this Philly offense, I think that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts would find a way to utilize 10 different running backs into this scheme if there was a way. Because, well, I mean, with this team and the dominant run that we saw from them throughout the majority of last season, you could strongly argue that their ability to utilize multiple running backs and adjust their use accordingly depending on what opposing defenses would throw at them was ultimately one of the biggest reasons as to why they had a top 2 offense in all of football. And whether you're talking about what he can do on the ground or even what he can add to this team through the air, D'Andre Swift is going to do nothing but add emphatically to this offense's unpredictable factor. And I say this because let's just go ahead and take into consideration the 2 different situations that we've seen D'Andre Swift in over the course of his career thus far. Because while he's always been used in sort of the same sense, that being a dual threat back who can thrive in hitting gaps on the ground while also being heavily targeted and used through the air with his speed and ability to create separation. But in terms of how he was actually being used within the Detroit Lions offense, it almost seemed like it was getting too predictable. And unlike him being the undisputed primary back at the beginning of his career in an offense, he switched into a running back by committee situation very similar to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2022. And yes, while it was a big note that he was receiving significantly less touches last season, his efficiency on the other hand when he was used was arguably one of the best out of all running backs in the league. And go figure, because the situation that he was absolutely thriving in last season is almost exactly what he's getting thrown into this season. For instance, when you look back to the Philadelphia Eagles last season, despite Miles Sanders clearly being the initiator both as the primary ground back and the primary receiving back in Philly's shotgun RPO style offense, Penny and Swift combined and when healthy arguably outweigh all the strengths that Miles Sanders brought to the table for this team's operation. Now don't get me wrong, Miles Sanders' speed and quickness is tough to beat almost across the entire league. But in terms of say a power back to be used in necessary short yardage situations, Philly hasn't had a guy like Rashaad Penny in quite some time. And then back to Swift, who you could say his speed and vision are right in line with Miles Sanders in terms of what they could actually do on the ground. He's also easily the runaway best pass catching presence in the backfield, which I know is something that Philly doesn't tend to incorporate into their scheming a lot. But I mean, with a four-headed monster of versatility like this to work with in the backfield, the possibilities, especially with an only improving wide receiver room right alongside this, really seem endless for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. But anyway, to get back to the draft, and more specifically, I guess, the defensive side of the ball for this team heading into the new season, considering everything we saw from this team in 2022, it feels extremely weird to say that despite displaying a top 10 overall defense last season, it wasn't necessarily the idea that they needed to improve overall, just in specific areas. And well, the biggest area, that would probably be the run defense. And lucky for Philly fans, I guess, because when you're talking about Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, they check a lot of the boxes that you typically look for in this regard. Because again, regarding Jalen Carter being one of the best overall prospects in the entire draft class, you probably can't find a better defensive tackle in terms of shedding the line and closing those gaps when defending the run. And with Nolan Smith potentially offering a linebacker solution, he too thrived more in run defense situations than anything else in his college days, with consistently locking down the outside. And honestly, what might be most crucial in all of this is just the simple fact of surrounding these guys with the versatile skill sets and veteran presence of Philly's defense already that you'd think would pay dividends on their development in due time. But of course, this, along with everything else that we've discussed here in this video, we'll just have to wait and see. Nonetheless though, you guys, I am also extremely curious to hear what you all have to think from all angles of the entire Philadelphia Eagles situation, so please be sure to let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the entire Eagles 2023 draft class as a whole? And on top of that, how well do you think D'Andre Swift is going to fit into this offense? But also, I just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you out there for watching. I appreciate you all more than anything. You all know this, and I will see you guys in the next video.